Hello everyone, we are going through a script that I've been writing over the last year or so. We're going to be going through the first scene and just having a look, reading through it, showing you my analyses. So we're going to start off on the first line. Okay, so we are in Duncan's room and his alarm is going off. He isn't waking up. It appears he's having a nightmare or is trying to ignore his alarm. Okay, now, first things first, the alarm's going to be loud, really, really loud. He isn't waking up, which tells the audience he's probably not that well rested. It also appears he's having a nightmare or is trying to ignore his alarm. Now, the reason I've put that in there is so that the actor more knows that this isn't restful sleep. But it's more up to the actor in their head if they want to be ignoring the alarm, if they want to be having a nightmare, whatever. But that comes across in that way, that he's not having a restful sleep. So the audience get a sense for the character being troubled through the use of him not being able to sleep, right? Most people that can't sleep are quite troubled. So Daisy, hearing this, comes into his room, the really loud alarm, and goes, "Duncan! Fuck Duncan, turn that stupid alarm off for fuck's sakes. Are you trying to wake up the whole neighbourhood?" So in this line, you can see Daisy's got a mouth, right? You've got swearing, the word stupid. Daisy's clearly quite a highly strung person through the swearing and use of explicit language. This sort of sets the tone. This sort of sets that they're in a neighbourhood, right? So this sort of gives the impression that they're in a suburban sort of area, subconsciously coming across to the audience. You're not directly telling them, we're in a neighbourhood and you're going to wake up everyone here in our house that's in the neighbourhood. You just mention it in brief passing, in a very comfortable, relaxed, in terms of writing, sorry, comfortable and relaxed way. You're not outright telling the audience that information. This dips the toe in the water with the constant theme of neighbourhoods, community, social stuff, societal roles. You just dip your toe in the You dip your toe in the water with that little word there. Are you trying to wake up the whole neighbourhood? Why do they care about their current role in their community? It's because Duncan has a business he's inherited from his missing father. Duncan cares about keeping up appearances, and this sort of creates a tension in their household. Also, the use of the word "fuck's sakes" here is you see Daisy's mother use most of the time when she's getting stressed or antsy. She uses that term, which shows that their relation. So Duncan says, "Could you please calm down with the profanities? It's only 7 AM. We can see Duncan is not really a fan of the bad language. You can sort of get the sense that he just doesn't like the swearing, but it's only really Daisy. Daisy's quite an explicit person, so it just comes across to Daisy as he doesn't like her, even though that's not necessarily the case. He just cares that she goes out and about the house swearing, so he tries to get her out of the habit of using bad words. He also says it's only 7 AM, which it does directly tell the audience the time, but this is going to become very relevant later on. So, you know, it's good to have them set so the audience can sort of guess along, you know, later on in the plot. So Daisy goes, "Could you please calm down with the stupidly loud alarm you never wake the fuck up to?" So her mimicking the first half of his sentence, on surface level it comes across as like banter, right? Sibling rivalry almost. But on a deeper level, she's sort of mocking Duncan and his ideologies on the social position that they're in. And we also see that she doesn't really care or respect Duncan's opinion here. Because she just carries on swearing. He says, "Could you please calm down the profanity?" She goes, "You never wake the fuck up to." So instantly, a mockery and lack of respect, right? Which Duncan's not going to like. We also see more into Duncan's problem with sleep through the use of the word "never." The stupidly loud alarm you never wake the fuck up to. So this isn't a one-off occasion. So Duncan says, "Your mouth will wake all the neighbours up before my alarm does." Again, coming off of sibling banter, however, on a deeper level, you can see almost a glimpse of Duncan's stubbornness as well as his avoidance to take responsibility for his actions or blame for his actions, because he is the one that's caused this situation. Let's not forget that. He is the one that's woken everyone up, right? He's the one She's just come in and mouthed off, but he's actually he's not acknowledging that that's a reaction to his action. You know, he's just sort of blaming her. He's shifting the blame. It's very clever way of him to sort of avoid taking responsibility, going around the actual reasoning. She just obviously acknowledges this, goes, whatever, you need to hurry up if your friend's getting here in an hour. So you cut the arguing. So the use of the word whatever is, she's quite dismissive of Duncan's actions, probably because he's been dismissive of his own actions and it's just easier for her to follow along, right? She's probably quite a few years younger than Duncan. So he sort of just manipulates her into forgetting about this. Not like badly, but just sort of brushes it off. So then she sort of brushes it off. Because she wants to be like him. He's her older brother and all that. And then we see her trying to help Duncan, showing him and showing the audience as well that she does care. So she goes, you need to hurry up if your friend's getting here in an hour. All Duncan is hearing is commands. He doesn't like being told. He hears, you need to hurry up, and takes it as an insult. And he goes, I'm fully aware of what I've got to do, Daisy. Worry about what you've got to do. So he's quite defensive. He's also quite dismissive of her affection and help. Almost, again, yeah, taking it as an insult. And he views himself as almost perfect and views Daisy as very flawed, which, again, it sort of digs onto the insult in his eyes. Like, how dare you, as a flawed human, tell me what I've got to do, sort of thing. He doesn't like it. But, again, he doesn't take it too, like, personal. He's just like, whatever. So he's cut to him getting ready in the shower, and we need him to put on a watch. This will show his likeness for punctuality, as well as foreshadowing the stress of time later on within the plot. But yeah, he's going about his morning routine, watch, wallet, all that stuff. Keys, grabbing all the essentials, really. And this is just sort of to gauge, not just have an awkward jump, you know what I mean? You don't want him to be like upstairs and just cut to him coming down. I mean, you could. Actually, yeah, you could. But we want to get the watch in there so we can foreshadow the stress of time throughout the thing. But if we don't want to do that, then we could just, in theory, remove that whole bit of him getting ready. I'm going ahead of myself. So we see him going down the stairs and walking into his kitchen through a wide open door. This is a possible location change, because obviously it's going to be a different room. That's all there is to really say about this little bit here. Duncan's mum, coffee, passes Duncan a hot mug of coffee. We see, so because he's... Duncan's mum says coffee and passes Duncan a hot mug of coffee. So we see Duncan's mother is like helping him here, and caring and looking after Duncan by giving him coffee, which gives us the impression that she's a good mum, very caring, big part of her character, and her parental role, and clearly cares about her children still. Duncan sipping the coffee says, thank you. So Duncan drinks the coffee with no hesitation, showing he trusts her, right? Because it's his mum. And he's sort of showing his respect by, and like saying, like, oh, it's good. But this isn't really for his sake, that it's more for her. It's like, yeah, thank you, lovely coffee. Like, trying to make her feel better, and trying to make the thank you mean a bit more, you know. Duncan's mum says, what were you and Daisy shouting about earlier? I could hear you both getting up to mischief. So, again, shows she cares about what them two are up to. Her motherly role is expressed even further, and also she's not angry at them. She doesn't shout at them. She doesn't go, oh, you two are screaming and shouting. You know, she's a lot more calm. She goes, what mischief were you two getting up to earlier then? And that kind of conveys to the audience that this is regular behaviour, the fact that she's not mad, or maybe irregular behaviour, because if it was more, she might be more mad. But I think she's more just used to it, to the point where it doesn't bother her. She's got bigger problems to deal with, and she doesn't really want to address the argument or pick a side to the argument. She's just got bigger issues altogether. She's sort of like completely, it's like this thing, swept straight past her, like a bit of paper flying in her face, you know what I mean? Just out of the way. Don't care. So Duncan goes, I was telling her to not wake all the neighbours up by shouting explicit words at 7 AM. See, notice here how he says, I was telling her not to wake up all the neighbours. Not she was telling me not to wake up all the neighbours with my stupidly loud alarm clock, right? Naturally, he sort of makes himself out to be the better person in this story. And I was telling her sort of comes across as he sees himself as an authoritative figure. He wants it to be that way. I was telling her. Like, I'm in charge of her. I was telling her, don't worry. And again, the use of the word 7 AM, mentioning the time, because it's going to be a regular theme running through this. Again, mentioning Daisy's explicit language, so enforcing that that's regular for her. Again, the use of the word neighbours, this is just repeating sort of information we've already heard to the audience to try and exaggerate it into their head through the use of repetition. It sort of adds a depth to the environment, doesn't it? So Daisy shouting from an upstairs room because she hears this and doesn't like it. She goes, "And I was telling you to shut your fucking alarm up." So her use of language once again shows her immaturity as well as emotional distress that she's currently sort of facing. Now this is because Duncan's leaving, right? He looks like his dad. His dad's already disappeared. All that stuff. So she doesn't like the thought of him leaving. Right, but Duncan, he's quite cold and calculated. He replies like this. He goes, "Yes, thank you for your input, Daisy." Now this reply is almost businesslike, right? It's almost businesslike, which shows that Duncan's emotionally detached from the people around him, as well as sort of himself. And he doesn't allow Daisy to feel as if there's an argument to be had here through that businesslike, cold, dead response. Almost then making her feel like her emotions and point are invalid and unheard, which is why she's acting out the way she is. Duncan's mother goes, "What time are you off?" Duncan's mother continues not mentioning the argument. She just continues with the conversation that they were already having. Again, probably making Daisy, because she can clearly hear what's going on, probably makes Daisy feel like her emotions are even more unheard, making her feel more isolated. And then again, the use of time. What time are you off? Duncan checking his watch. If George is on time, about 7 minutes. So we see it's been 52 minutes in their day since Duncan woke up through the use of the time, because Daisy says, "George, your friend's getting here in an hour," so we know that George is coming to get him at 8. So Duncan checking his watch, if George is on time, about 7 minutes. If shows that George is probably not going to be on time, or often isn't on time. He's quite judgmental of George's time or inability to be on time, and expects him to be late. The 7 minutes also shows that Duncan's got quite a structured thought process. He's very exact with what he's saying. He likes exactness, certainty in answers, and he doesn't like in a moment, or he very direct. In about 7 minutes, exactly 7 minutes. Again, quite businesslike. So Duncan's mum goes, "All right, we'll drink up your coffee and then go to the loo. George isn't a very experienced driver, so don't keep making him pull over. It's unfair." So she's more telling him rather than suggesting the idea to him, which shows the audience that she herself is, again, some sort of authoritative figure over Duncan, except she's a lot more caring than Duncan and the way that Duncan treats Daisy. Obviously, because it's a different relationship. They've got a sibling relationship. They've got a mother-daughter, mother-son relationship. Again, Duncan doesn't like being told what to do. You also see that she's sort of suggesting this for George's sake. Like, it's unfair. It's unfair on George. She doesn't like unfairness, right? She doesn't like things being unjust. And that kind of tells us the fact that she has to tell him it's unfair. Sort of shows that she's somewhat aware of Duncan's inability, or Duncan's lack of empathy for others. So she's sort of aware of Duncan's emotionless shit. But Duncan again repeats himself as earlier on, "I'm aware. I'm aware." Just like he told Daisy, "I'm aware of what I need to do." He's like, "I'm aware." Then he sort of hears the ellipsis, he sort of second guesses how he's about to treat her. Because he could have just been like, "I'm aware," and walked off and be very cold. But he doesn't like to do that. He's a bit of mama's boy, right? He goes, "I'm aware." He turns to her and goes, "Mum, it'll be alright. Nothing bad will happen." Now, he's sort of like saying, "Thank you for caring after me," for that second half. Like, it will be alright, nothing will happen. He's reassuring her. This sort of makes them seem like they've got a mutual respect for one another. Like, they understand each other a lot better than Daisy and her mum, or Daisy and Duncan, right? Again, leading Daisy to feel even more isolated, right? Even more in her own bubble, right? In her own house, which isn't really fair. So Daisy sort of feeling a bit depressed, right? So Duncan's mum says, I know. It's just after your father." She's like, "Duncan, I know. She doesn't like to feel as if other people think she's unaware. Just like Duncan. She goes, "It's just after your father." Now, she's sort of chosen the wrong time to talk about it, but she's emotional. She goes, she struggles to contain her emotions, but like overpowers it almost too far the wrong way, and instead of being upset, more becomes fiercely angry and sort of takes it out on Duncan by telling him, "Do you understand?" So she goes, "After your father, I don't want to see anyone else going missing. Do you understand?" Duncan's obviously acknowledged this behaviour, and he goes, "I understand." Very direct response, showing he's not really good with emotional responses. Again, showing his repeatedly structured nature and going back to almost business-like. I understand, simple as, plain and simple. I understand, very direct. Duncan's mum says, if something happened to him, I will never forgive myself for hating him. But so God help me if I find out he is alive. And she walked out and asked, and I'll bury him myself. She's unsure on what's happened to her husband. She doesn't like it. She doesn't know how to feel because she hasn't had an answer. She hasn't had a... What's the word I'm looking for? She hasn't had any closure, right? So she's still got all these questions running around her head. So she's insecure about what's actually happened to her husband. If it's something she's done to upset her husband, if her husband's walked out on her and like that reflects badly on her, or all these questions running around her head. And you know, she hasn't addressed them, so they're coming out now when Duncan's leaving. Especially it's the son of the man that went missing, right? He's gonna have the same mannerisms as his father, right? So of course it's an uncomfortable morning for both Daisy and her mother. So this conveys also to the audience that there's a lot more going on beneath the surface, right? Duncan, he don't give a shit. He goes, thank you for the coffee, mum. So Duncan doesn't really know how to respond to this emotional outburst and just loops the conversation back around to the coffee. Again, conveying to the audience that Duncan isn't great at handling his own emotions because he doesn't want to address his emotions towards his father or his mother's emotions toward his father, which his mum can sort of tell and makes her realise she's given Duncan quite a hateful reaction to his father, as well as possibly put ideas in his head about him leaving, which she doesn't know if he's necessarily thought about before, but he's smart, so she probably is aware that he has. But yeah, she feels guilty and she regrets this. So the camera stays on her face for a brief moment and she looks troubled. This is so you can see that all that thought, the guilt, the confusion behind it. Why have I just spoken to my son like this? Why have I let him know this? Because she doesn't. That's not normal for her. She doesn't like it, so she looks a bit troubled. I'm sort of just mentally reflecting on our own little outburst just then. I feels bad for putting all this emotion on Duncan, who clearly doesn't like emotion. We then cut to Duncan in his back garden, sitting on a white plastic old garden chair. Right. So the furniture being outdated and being a white old 2000s garden chair, is sort of to replicate a London council estate from like probably the early 2000s. Because I think if they're in a big suburban house, which is probably quite modern, it sort of shows that they're out of place with their current community. Like they're almost because they're from a different community. They've moved here recently. That's the plot, which I've forgotten to mention. But that sort of just represents that they're out of place, feeling out of place. But no one can see it except them because it's in their house, you know what I mean? Like, just like how no one else can actually see through their facade, but they feel like everyone can, sort of thing. He's smoking a cigarette and finishing his coffee. So this is a nicotine and caffeine addiction, showing he is harming himself, probably due to his repressed emotions. And he's gotten so bad that it's to the point where Duncan seems peaceful. He's relaxed hurting himself like this. Hurting himself is the only time he feels peace, which tells me he's very troubled. Until a car starts repeatedly beeping from somewhere. Again, represents the way Duncan's always interrupted whenever he has a moment to relax, which is probably why he keeps it up. He almost interrupts himself. He makes sure that something's going to interrupt him almost beforehand so that he doesn't have a moment to sit with his feelings, because he doesn't want to. Now he sighs and slowly gets up off the garden chair. Now these little sighs and the moments he takes to reflect, like he's not going to get up as he's taking the cigarette out of his mouth. He's going to do it 1-1-1, right? So he's going to stand up. Oh, no, sorry, wrong bit. He's going to sigh. He's going to then stand up off the garden chair. Now Daisy flies through the back door. Duncan, your mate is outside blaring his fucking horn, please. So she's sick to death of Duncan repeatedly pressuring her to be more active, more reserved member of the community, and sort of cut off her antisocial habits when him and his mates clearly have very bad antisocial habits: drinking, smoking, blaring their horns in the middle of the street. Now Duncan is aware of these bad habits and he doesn't know how to break them, so he just sits with them and lives with them. But he expects everyone else to know and be able to break their habits, such as Daisy, and Daisy doesn't like this. Now Duncan, he's like, all right, I have ears, do I not? Again, he's annoyed at people thinking he's unaware of stuff, right? He doesn't like... How dare you not think I know something that you know? If you know, I definitely know. It's sort of that egotistical mindset of I'm superior. Why do you think you'd know something that I wouldn't? I already know that. You don't need to tell me. I tell you. That sort of mindset, right? But he doesn't... He's not an outright prick, you know what I mean? So he says it subtly. These things are hidden. He says, all right, I have ears, do I not? And then Daisy goes back inside because she feels hurt and pissed off. She doesn't like it. She just goes back through into the house and through the house, but that's unaware to Duncan. So Duncan puts his cigarette out on the ashtray. So again, one by one is what I mean. He'd put his cigarette out on the ashtray and then pick his coffee up and swig it off the last of his coffee, put that down, and then enter the house. Not whilst drinking the coffee, sort of walking to the door. It's too rushed. He needs to have a very slow... He's in charge. He's always in charge, regardless of what any other character is thinking. In his mind, he's in charge of the situation at all given times. No matter who's waiting on him, what's going on, he's in charge in his head. So he walks through the corridor and goes to pick up his bag before he's interrupted. So he's interrupted by Daisy screaming at someone. George is still beeping his car horn because he hasn't acknowledged Daisy's actually shouting at him yet. So Duncan's hearing, will you pack it in? This is a respectable area. Duncan goes, fuck. Like, proper stress here. Proper stress. Trying not to overreact or show emotion, but he's currently pissed off. And he doesn't want to show that. She's going, will you pack it in this respectable area, for fuck's sake? So she uses Duncan's obsession with the respectable area and being respectable in the community sort of as a delusional way of hoping he'd agree with her. Almost as if he'd come out and be like, yeah, fuck you, friend. Daisy's right. This is a respectable area. Pack it in. But all he's seeing is you're making a point, but you're also adding to the chaos. So he's not happy about this at all. And then through the use of the word for fuck's sakes, you can see her mother here uses the same word. So that sort of comes across as their relation. Like, just little hints like that they are related. They've all grown up together just through the use of the same wordage. Just because they're all related. But here she's losing her patience with Daisy, but she's fully aware of why, because she's in the same boat as Daisy really here. Again, people around here, she says people around here, like, again trying to get Duncan to side with her, and then she says absolute cunt, right? So she's almost thinking that being extreme is going to get her point further across, but this is almost her letting out her pent up anger, letting it out, sorry. Duncan goes, Daisy! So he's stressing out, right? He's stressing out big time. He doesn't know how to, he doesn't know what to do in an emotional situation. He's been put into one, so he's stressing and attempting to calm her down. But due to not knowing an emotional approach, he sort of just resorts to saying her name, and you see it time and time again, right? He goes Daisy, and then you'll see it in a minute, but Daisy goes, fucking what, Duncan? So she sort of calms down and de-escalates a bit her voice and stuff when she realizes when she realizes that she's got his attention, and she goes, fucking what? And Duncan he doesn't care for this, right? He walks over to the car and goes, George, and greets George. Like, completely trying to put off the emotional situation he's refusing to be in, almost like he's delusional. Like, I'm not in this situation. George, how are you? Trying to come across as well-mannered. Again, being more businesslike and having that facade. And Daisy just doesn't like it, and she tries to regain his attention. Fucking what? And George, he doesn't apologise to Daisy. He apologises to Duncan. Sorry about the horn, I forgot what house it is. Again, pushing Daisy to the side, making her feel more isolated, more unheard, more like just literally pushing on to everything that she's already going through with that one little ignore her, speak to my friend. Don't apologise to the person that's angry at me, apologise to my friend who isn't, you know. So he goes, sorry about the horn, I forgot what house it is. This is just absolute bullshit. He's sort of forgotten what house it is. He could have just pressed the horn twice. He knows that. He's just sort of like, I've obnoxiously been loud, completely forgetting that Duncan's family, or like thinking that Duncan's family thinking they wouldn't react, and now they have, and now I'm sort of a bit like, ooh, whoops, ooh. So he sort of goes, sorry, I forgot what house it was. Sort of like lying, absolute shit, really, just absolute outright lying. But for the sake of not wanting to come across badly, even though that's exactly what he's already done, he tries to make up an excuse, sort of seeing that everyone's already looking at Daisy badly, trying to, yeah, Daisy, like, I forgot what house it was, like, gosh, why are you getting so mad because I forgot what house it was? That's sort of, like, it's a lie, right? You know, just sort of doing what Duncan does, shifting the blame. Daisy sees this straight away and goes, oh, fuck off, starts walking off. So she sort of gives up on this whole, she just feels like she's constantly being attacked, like, why am I putting myself in this position? I keep getting attacked. And then Duncan, again, she's screaming fuck off in the middle of the road. He doesn't know what to do, he doesn't know how to talk to her, so he just again resorts to saying, Daisy, sorry about her. He's apologising to George. And George is apologising to him. Again making Daisy feel isolated. And he doesn't really know how to have an emotional response to the, oh fuck off. So he just again resorts to saying her name, and he goes, sorry about her. And then he gets interrupted, but he wants to defend, like not defend his friend, but almost protect his friend from his sister attacking her. And doesn't know how to discipline Daisy or get through to her. So he just keeps resorting to saying his name. Her name. Now Daisy turns around, she's snapped now, she's come back. She's like, fucking shout at me again, you fucking piece of shit. Starts whacking him, giving him the full fucking 1-2 combo, you know what I mean? And Duncan's mum, she don't like this. She's like, Daisy, get inside now. But she's sort of just sick of the attention going around her all the time. This is her sort of way of feeling in charge. She's sick of being spoken down to. This is an emotional outburst very much. She's scared of Duncan leaving more than anything else. And instead of addressing that, she's attacking him for that. Like, how dare you make me feel this way? But she doesn't know, because she's too young to know. She doesn't understand her own emotions yet. So Duncan's mum goes, Daisy, get inside now, right? She's starting to lose her patience with Daisy, but she's fully aware of why, because she's in the same boat, right? She knows, right? And Daisy's like, oh, so he and his pals can just cause a scene in the street and I'm not allowed. What the fuck is going on here? I don't know what was going on there, sorry. He goes, oh, so he and his pals can just cause a scene in the street, but I'm not allowed. Now, she's almost hysterical at this point. She's challenging her mother on Duncan's hypocrisy and is sick of being repeatedly told boundaries that she has to set for herself, even though everyone else has boundaries and they just seem to bend them for their own well-being. And she's not allowed to do this. She's always told off and disciplined when she does this, probably because of her age. She's not taken too seriously in what she says, and she doesn't like it. So Duncan's mum replies, Duncan isn't under the influence of his emotions. He won't do anything he regrets. Now, come on, let's have tea. Now, this is very clever from her. She's being fierce and strict, so again, she's being that parental figure, like tough love, and acknowledges Duncan's lack of emotions by saying Duncan isn't under the influence of his emotions, knowing that Duncan isn't going to be ever, like he won't allow it. So she says this like outright. Duncan is not under the influence of his emotions, very much so. He won't do anything he regrets. Is subconscious. She's subconsciously. Not even subconsciously, but I think she's she says this thinking, oh, nothing really of it, but it's making Daisy feel as if she's going to regret this moment. Like, once again, almost telling her to repress her emotions, like, and that her emotions aren't valid, and you know, then it's brushed away like, let's have tea, as if like everything that just happened is absolutely meaningless, and walks back inside. And Daisy's like, what the fuck? Now come on, let's have tea. And she walks back inside, so she doesn't give Daisy the chance to argue it, right? Sort of like, do what you're told, I've told you to do it, so you're just doing it, sort of thing. So she just walks back inside. And Daisy just being a bit like, I don't know what to do. I currently feel stupid for having emotions, even though my emotions are perfectly valid. But am I being crazy? Am I being the problem? So she just sort of like apologetically walks back inside. Now George, he's like clearly seeing all this, and he's like, "What the? This isn't normal." So he goes, "Trouble in Paradise, Dunks," which also gives the impression that he knows of like Duncan's persona that he tries to make out in the community, because George isn't from this community, but he's very close with Duncan. So, and he's also quite aware of everything. He knows about Duncan's family problems, and he probably just for back reference, in my head when writing this, I'm like, he helped Duncan through that period of time when his dad went missing. But therefore he also knows Duncan well enough to know that Duncan pushes people away. And yeah, very subtle nod to the fact that George is aware of his persona, like Trouble in Paradise Dunks, you know, sort of that he's like sort of in the inner circle, or is aware of the inner circle within Duncan's life. So Duncan says they've been stressed. So he's sort of defending his family to make their actions a bit more justifiable to George without revealing much information. He's quite clever, Duncan. He doesn't want to reveal information about anything. So he just cleverly words that they've been stressed, like defending them without giving any information. George, he knows Duncan well enough to be like, he's going to withhold information unless I ask. So he goes, because of your dad, knowing Duncan's reluctant to give out or open up about his dad and stuff. But George isn't a dumb character. He's sort of fully aware of why they're arguing. He's like, look, man, like, you're coming away, your dad's gone missing, you look like your dad, they probably don't want you to go. He's not stupid. He's probably clocked this out already. So Duncan goes, I'm unsure, would you give me a moment? So he's convinced, he's sure it's about his dad. He's convinced himself it's about his dad. But he hasn't had confirmation from his mum or sister, so he uses that in his mind as an excuse to say, I'm unsure. Would you give me a moment? Again, choosing the option of withholding information, showing that he's a bit emotionless. Then he respectfully asks George if he could wait a moment, which shows you he does somewhat actually care for George and have real emotions towards him. So George says, yeah, just try and make it quick, we have got a long drive. Which sets the tone for the next scene, because Duncan takes his sweet time showing how easy it is for Duncan to just naturally disrespect other people's wishes and disregard them. So Duncan says there's a cafe down the road. Now this is a very conscious decision. He's consciously trying to get George away from his house in case the conversation gets heated or emotionally loud or whatever. Not on his own part, obviously. And then he turns his back, just like his mother done to Daisy a moment ago when she goes back inside. And he turns his back so sort of George can't argue him. And he goes, I'll meet you there in 15 minutes. And now at this point he's not asking. He's telling, which subtly shows his disrespectful nature. So George starts driving off and goes, all right, Dunks, be all right, yeah, which shows to the audience that George does trust Duncan, because he goes straight there without any second guessing. And he respects his wishes and he does as he's told. And he tells him to be all right, so that shows he cares. Now Duncan, again, having a little mental break here, he sighs before walking back into the house. George drives off, he stands there, he goes, all right, now let me walk in. Almost like he's taking a mental moment, you know? Like a moment of, okay, let me catch up with myself, catch my breath, now for the next thing. And then that's the end of the scene. But yeah, I just wanted to go through that with all of you. So thank you. But yeah, that's the scene. Now, I want this scene to be after the opening credits of a feature film I'm trying to write. But I thought I'd just share it here first, really, and just, you know, get some opinions or whatnot. So if you've got any opinions on it, down in the comments, you could leave that. It'd be much appreciated. But yeah, I think this is going to be really cool. I want Duncan to be a serial killer by the end of it. I haven't finished writing the whole thing. It's sort of still in bits and pieces, but I just wanted to share this scene because I feel like this scene's really come together really well and really glued together. And I just wanted to share it and whatnot, but I hope you enjoy. Alright, thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed.